Welcome back. As we've been discussing, Thursday is election day for many parts of England. 23 of 317 local authorities are being contested, plus 6 mayoralties and a parliamentary by-election in Runcorn and Helsby. This is where the parties start from. The Conservatives had a great night when these were last fought 4 years ago. They're defending nearly 1,000 seats and control of 16 councils. Reform was in its infancy then, so it could be a tough night for the Tories. Here's where those councils are, a sea of Tory blue, that solitary pocket of Labour red being Doncaster. But look how much has changed since then. The Conservatives won 40% of the vote nationally, but in a poll for Sky this week, that had halved. Labour were on 30% last time. The poll now puts them on 23%. And Reform were grouped into that other category last time. But this time, they led this week's poll. And for the first time ever, it's Reform fielding the most candidates, closely followed by the Conservatives and Labour. Right, I can speak now to the pollster I may say I trust most in this country, Peter Kellner. Peter, let's start with why it matters. What's at stake on Thursday?
Two things are at stake, Trevor. Firstly, who controls these counties up and down England? As you showed, the Tories won the great majority of them last time. They're expected to lose most of those. So who will govern? To the people who live in those counties, the government of those counties may well change. And indeed, we may start seeing Conservative Reform coalitions locally, which will have a big national effect. But the second big thing is what the parties will be looking out for is the national story that emerges. And you showed the poll last week nationally. Now, what tends to happen in local elections is the big parties do a bit worse than their poll rating and the smaller parties do better than their poll rating. Classically, the Liberal Democrats have traditionally won 5 or 10% more of the vote in council elections than in national elections. So when you look at where the parties are now, you see Labour 23, Conservatives 20. It could well be that together they'll have under 40%, more than the vote nationally. More than 60% going to Reform, Lib Dems, Greens and Independents, others. And that is really new in British politics. It takes us into a new space, slightly concealed by the fact that we have a voting system which pushes back against multi-party politics.
I want to come back to that issue of the Labour-Tory vote, but just on the local thing, I think you've said elsewhere that you expect to see more councils in no overall control, i.e. coalitions.
Well, that's right. And I think in most of them, because we're looking at what is normally Tory England, because Scotland isn't voting, Wales isn't voting, the big English cities aren't voting, something that's being talked about a lot, including in this weekend's papers, what might Tories and Reform do approaching the next general election, which is probably 4 years away? Well, in a number of counties, they're going to face this in a few weeks' time, indeed a few days' time, because I suspect a lot of these traditionally Tory counties, there will be a majority for Conservative and Reform, but not for either of them individually. What do they then do? Because nationally we're told, no deal, we'll fight each other, no relationship whatsoever. But in practice, what will they do at local council level? So the Tory Reform drama after next Thursday will move to a lot of county halls.
Well, the Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch, has just been saying to me that she's, relatively speaking, relaxed about that. What do you if we see a lot of these coalitions, what do you think that means for politics more generally? Will people get used to it, or will it just become vociferous and with lots of arguments that end up essentially driving those parties further apart?
One of the curious things is if you take a very long view of British politics, it's been essentially stable Conservative Labour dominance for 100 years, just over 100 years. And the occasional times when there have been by-elections or the birth of the SDP in the 1980s under Roy Jenkins, you had UKIP coming through suddenly in European elections in particular. So the question is it different this time? Is it like another of these minor party surges which will subside when we get to the serious business of choosing a government? Or has it changed? I think it has changed because this has not happened suddenly. Over years and years and years, we've seen the Tory plus Labour vote gradually come down. A few exceptions, a few sort of bumps on the way, but it's been coming down. And I think there's a reason for that, which is when I was growing up, when you and I were growing up, we're of an age to remember when politics was essentially middle-class Conservative, working-class Labour. It was about politics, it was about ideology, it was about identity, it was about social class. That's all gone. The economy's changed, identities have changed, far fewer people are attached to any one party, and this has allowed other parties to come through. It may go down a bit at the next election, but I think we are into a long period of multi-party politics.
Just very briefly, Peter, who's got most to worry about this week?
The Conservatives, because it is, I'm not saying that it will happen, it's perfectly possible. Not only will they lose most or even all of their councils, but they could, when we get the projection of the national vote, they could come out fourth with possibly, here's the possibility that will set us all chatting away next weekend for hours on end. It could be national vote, Reform first, Lib Dem second, Labour third, Conservative fourth. I'm not saying that will happen, but it's possible.
You heard it here first. Thank you so much, Peter.